listening to the Adventure Party for the 5th week of July 2023. This week, the party and their guest go on a kaleidoscopic journey through infinite fantasy worlds. Or maybe we'll just bum around a weird version of London and discuss philosophy. The Adventure Party, discussing tabletop and radio gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Eoin.
I'm still Savage.
I'm Warlord Scar.
And today we have with us a special guest who nearly cut across me, but didn't quite. Xaosseed, how you doing, man?
Very good. Need to work on my radio discipline, but there you go.
No, I had a different idea for that as well, but I think Eoin handled that masterfully. And the editor can always take care of this, right? That's what they do.
Editor's not going to change anything. This
No,
is
he's
all
not. It all stays in.
Excellent.
Remind us who Xaosseed is, by the way. Who's this guy? I don't remember.
So, for a tie-in from there to where we're trying to get to, so myself and Savage were the first shared TTRPG table playing, among other things, original Planescape back in the AD&D era. And one of the things that's just dropped at time of recording is we've gotten a good look at the new Planescape that's due to come out in October from our friends at Xaosseed. And I just wanted to go through, what does that look like? What do we think? Is it going to be a zombie-like resurrection of fondly remembered childhood memories, or will it actually be worth buying?
Our friends at Xaosseed. I'm not your friend, buddy.
So, I never played Planescape. I'm familiar with the kind of...
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You played in my Planescape game in the crossover that Jer did.
Yes, that is true. So I have touched on Planescape, as part of Jer's Mad Game. He killed me once for missing a session. You know, that was rough.
Viking Hat DM.
Was he using the Doom Clock?
No, he just killed my character. I showed him my character's dead, and I was like, "Oh, great! Cheers! I'm really glad I came back in for this game." And he made me sit in the corner for the full game and didn't bring my character back to life by the end of it. So I had to go back to the next session and get rezzed. And I was a little cheesed about that.
We were not good people back then.
Oh, look, life's tough. You have to get a helmet, I've touched on Planescape. I haven't played a lot of Planescape. I'm familiar with the concept. What was the unique selling points of Planescape? What was special about it?
So I would say the big thing about Planescape was you got to do the wonder and majesty and bonkers planes that you got from D&D at low scale. The shtick with Planescape was you can go out there and you can wander around as a level 1, as a level 2, and you won't just get eaten. Because prior to Planescape, it was the planes were the highest level dungeon. The only reason you went to the planes was because you were too mighty and nothing on your own homeworld was a challenge anymore. But then Planescape was hang on, maybe people live out there anyway. And that seemed to be the hook for the whole thing. And then there was a whole big spread of the 90s era factions. There was all of the these you can change the multiverse by the power of your belief. And then they fleshed out all of the kind of the bits of the alignment compass that hadn't really gotten much detail because some of them are less exciting than others bits. That was the kind of the shtick of the whole thing. And then the adventures that went with Planescape tended to be things like go to plane X, find a thing, come home. In the Abyss was go find a ship of chaos. Something Wild was go figure out who's hunting what on the Beastlands. The Diva Spark was there's some weird monster running around in the higher planes, that type of stuff. And then in the center of the whole thing, you had this multiversal hub city of Sigil, which had the Lady of Pain in charge of it, and it was the ultimate crossroads. The Lady of Pain kept a lid on things, if so demons and angels could treat it as neutral territory. And so you could run into anything there. And that was its shtick.
So you were kind of in Space Casablanca or Plane Casablanca?
Planes Casablanca, yeah.
Fantasy multi Casablanca. It's Stargate come out at that point.
And this was very much tied into back to the old 9-axis alignment. And there's kind of there's an elemental truth to that. And this is where the place where it's purest. This is the realm of pure chaotic evil, pure neutral good, or whatever else. and this is kind of where these kind of beings kind of arise nearly from the substance of the plane and are innately tied to it.
It had Dieter Lizzie running front and center on the original artwork, which really kind of captured the whimsical, fairy, weird aspect of the planes, and it was that melting pot as well. You could meet literally anything, and it had rules for a bunch of non-standard player races, right?
I think that sort of came later. To start off with, there were a few, but then things like the Tiefling cropped up at about this time, and they were a monster first. They were just in the monster manual. Then later they turned up as things. You had I think the one that came in the box was the Borear, the goat centaurs.
Cool.
Yeah, and then the other, there was loads and loads of effectively what subclasses, the AD&D kits. I can't remember how those work, but you'd get a bunch of effectively bolt-on options to specialize your character for the planes. But the big thing was it was tons of fluff and flavor, and I've gone and looked back through some of them, and they are really light on crunch. There's tons and tons of fluff and ideas, and here's what's out there, and there's this god's realm, and you might run into this NPC. Here's his 2 lines of stat block, and that's all the crunch you'll get in 2 pages.
In a weird way, this game, this setting, starts to kind of make sense of the monster manual. Because you're expecting all of this weird stuff to arrive to the prime material plane, but in Planescape it's actually native, so it's not necessarily that you're going to fight the Balor that you meet, or the Zorn or whatever. You might buy a drink off it. But you've got all the stats for if you have to fight them. But now it's contextual. Now it gives you a way to meet them on their home turf, or at least somewhere that is plausibly neutral. And that's probably the great advantage of this book. It's, as you said, it might be a bit light on crunch, but then consider it alongside the Monsters Manual, which you have because you've been playing D&D, and all of a sudden, all of this stuff is opened up. You don't have to think of a special scenario to bring a rock monster and a goblin and a fire elemental together. They're just hanging out.
Yep, you could find all of those sitting in Sigil, and then they're kind of the sandbox where venturing into the abyss itself is just you're just going to get killed. But the Outlands, particularly the gate towns of the Outlands, so that point where the abyss touches up on the Outlands, and you've got Plague Mort. Or over where the Nine Hells touches up in the Outlands, you've got Ribcage. So, here's my tourist version of that plane. You want just a bit of the flavor of what the place is like, go visit the gate town on the Outlands. And the Outlands then becomes a place where, you could have all of your, we're not quite ready to go delving into the actual Nine Hells, but we can experience a bunch of it by going to the gate towns. The 2 planar campaigns I ended up running, one that you were in, Savage, was effectively sliders, Monster of the Week, portals. I don't know, what would be your two-line recollection of the later half of that?
It's let's jump through a portal. What's the worst could happen?
Yep.
That's the game. That is the opportunity to go somewhere new every single session. Actually, it's the Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton with more killing. Only slightly more.
I'm not going to claim I hadn't read those.
They're amazing. It's Stargate for 10-year-old English children.
While you climb a tree, it is something else. It's really, really freaky visuals as well. There's a big moon-headed guy, isn't there?
He's one of your friends, yeah. Moonhead.
I think his name is Moonface. No, it's Moonface or Moonhead. It was it does what it says in the tin.
But the peril came because, and I'm getting way off topic here, but the lands at the top of the faraway tree are always on the move. You go through this hole in the clouds, and you don't know exactly how long you've got to get back. But if you don't get back, oh boy, you're taking a long way home. And you can do things like that in Planescape as well, because you had to have certain keys to open these portals.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I found really interesting about Planescape was with the second one that I ran that Hida, you ended up in, was dropping the players onto one of the outer planes under the sort of the protection nominal of one of the locals. But then it meant that okay, we are on the lower planes. Pretty much everything we come face to face with is significantly scarier than we are. How do we outthink them? How do we get what we need to get by thinking our way around these Yugolots and demons and devils, etc.? Because just hacking them up is not an option. So that was another that's another kind of approach to the planes where like you meet these things in their home terrain. They are scary, dangerous, but they live here, and you're trying to get something out of them. So how do you work around the fact that they're that dangerous?
You're the interloper. Just before we go any further, Shane, any exposure to original Planescape?
No, that's one of the things. Like, I think I fit into just a very particular gaming timeline where, as people I've said before, I was very much a 3.0, 3.5 baby. And while there was an attempt by WotC to maintain what we'll call the IP of the stuff that this Planescape had built up, it was way more mechanistic and let's call it, well, we might call it a IP maintenance. It was more that they were trying to keep a hold of, this is our brand identity, all these different planes and cities and stuff. That's our stuff, and we're going to report it in a very dry manual called the Manual of the Planes. But there was a lot less emphasis on it as a setting in and of itself. Well, basically, they didn't want to bring back on big creatives like Teaserly, and I believe Monty Cook was one of them.
Well, I think I would very much, the 3E Manual of the Planes, like, it is a book full of crunch that is the crunch that wasn't in the first one. So, like, if you had a shelf full of second ed AD, like AD&D Planescape, and then you got your Manual of the Planes, it's like, oh, okay, this is the patch, this is the update. Bam. Okay, now all of my stuff is now, I just need fluff from that set of boxes. Here's the rules for whatever bit and piece I need. There we go. But if you'd missed the AD&D stuff, it was like, this is thin gruel.
Cynical placeholder product.
3.5 was far more interested in bespoke planes rather than revisiting the same ones over again. You'd get Dungeons Magazine, you'd have a different demi plane every month. Someone say, oh, I feel like I want to do something with shadows. Here's the demi plane of shadows. And then 5 months later, there'd be the demi plane of light because we're having a light themed issue. But there was very little emphasis on like visiting Sigil again. You'd still have all these stuff goes up. Everyone remembers Savage Tide and the Demogorgon showing up and all that. But there wasn't really an emphasis on having that same type of adventure. So Planescape's fans could very well feel shortchanged by that. But for me, it seemed to have gone back to the idea of the planes as sort of a high-level place to go. There wasn't that sense that Planescape had, or we could just, a couple level 1 guys can just head off to Sigil and have some fun. It was back to, okay, you have your first 10 levels going around the plane, first you kill orcs, then you kill dragons, then you kill giants, and then around level 10, you're going to find your Well of the Many Worlds in some dungeon somewhere, and you're going to start running around the plains, fighting demons and titans and such not. That was very much the thing. It was the emphasis was once again on it as a sort of a utility set for different GMs to use as they wished, as opposed to being a strong setting in itself. And that attitude sort of has maintained itself since. There hasn't been a real sense of any kind of return to Planescape. And in a sense, it might be because there hasn't also been there's a lot less emphasis on settings in general these days. And one of the things about Planescape was it was kind of meant to be like Spelljammer at the same time, kind of meant to be this idea of, well, we can go between all our settings. You go from Dragonlance to Dark Sun to Al-Qadim in the course of a single campaign if you wanted to. But because there's been such a less emphasis on campaign settings as a part of the brand, that means there's less call for them to be things you can go between. People just sort of intended to come up with their own stuff. And that's sort of the environment that I came up with as a game. Since then, I have learned a lot about Planescape and I could see where it was going, but it wasn't drummed into me the way it was for the second ed people.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right, that is our mandatory reminiscing over with. Let's move to the future, because why the hell are we talking about Planescape in the year of our Gygax 2023?
Well, Savage, because...
Well, there's no... Okay, look, you can pick up on the hook, but there's no need to spit it out, bait untouched. There's a new product.
There is a new product, Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse. But basically, we've known it's coming on October 17th for a while, but it's just come available for pre-order, and with that, look at the books, look at the inside contents, look at the poster map, look at the DM screen, the works.
Showed us some pictures, and it's another triptych slipcase release.
Yeah, same as Spelljammer.
That's I hear the sense of dread in Xaosseed's voice there.
Yeah.
Well, okay, So time to spill some tea. Xaosseed's currently running a campaign. He's running us through the what's it called again?
Light of Xerxes.
That's the Spelljammer book that they put out.
Yeah.
When did they put it out? Last year?
Last year, September-ish.
Okay. So we've got an annual kind of thing going on now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have poo-pooed this release in the past because it feels like a very low page count with a lot of artwork and something quite fluffy. Maybe it should have been a bit crunchier. And we seem to have the same format again this time round. And this is so much to cover. Like if you took this, so there's the 3 books that they've announced that come in the slipcase. One's going to be setting, one's going to be adventure, the other one's going to be what? Bestiary. And that's to cover everything. That's a big ask. How well do you think they did on that with Spelljammer?
So the bestiary wasn't bad, and I'm going to anticipate that will do what it says in the tin. You'll get a decent selection of monsters. I've gotten decent mileage out of the bestiary for Spelljammer. Full, good flavorful stuff. The adventure, the version of the adventure I'm running you guys through has been significantly remixed.
Quelle surprise! I thought we were playing it pretty straight, but okay.
So I don't know. We'll see. I think because I know they definitely did the adventure, and they said we watched a whole bunch of Flash Gordon, then we wrote this adventure. So
I watched Flash Gordon last night with the boy.
There you go.
And it holds up in such interesting ways.
But yeah, that kind of onwards. Hey, it looks like we've hit some kind of problems. We're just gonna with one bound our hero is free. Next.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what is this adventure. Is it because if it's Planescape, I could see where Spelljammer was much more space swashbuckling. This could be a much more twistier intrigue thing. And what's making me go, is the articles that they're pushing on D&D Beyond and kind of tagging in the, hey, Planescape is coming, you might want to read these articles. One includes how to run cities.
Okay.
So we may be getting a kind of a sigil-focused urban runaround campaign, maybe something like Dragon Heist. Don't know. But if they were going to play into what one might consider strengths, then some kind of intrigue sneaking around among factions and are demons and angels and all the likes on the streets of Sigil, which is effectively high fantasy cosmic Cold War. That could be good. So I'm going, it's good. It depends. There's grist there for something to be good, and that'll be fine. My concern, much as it was, it was, as was revealed with Spelljammer, there was the bestiary. Bestiary's fine. Adventure was what it was. The book for the setting was more than half of that was ship plans, nice artwork for the ships and so on. And we got jack all on how to run Spelljammer games, encounter tables, building systems, anything to give, to let you, I'm a DM, I want to set up a Spelljammer campaign. What are you giving me? And no ship combat rules at all. So that was that book was definitely the weakest of the 3 in the Spelljammer set. And Sigil and the Outlands, which is the book, what does it say? That's going to be planar rules, locations, and character options. So we're going to get a bunch of character options, of course, as per the rest. Are we going to get much in the way of locations? Is it going to be more like Third Ed, where you get a smattering, a couple of lines of all the different places, and it's a very high level skim. What I could see is if the whole box set is going to be more like the old core Planescape, which was you get a chunk of sigil, you get the outlands, and you don't get much of the outer planes at all. They came in later boxes, which was fine for AD&D Planescape because those later boxes turn up. They're not going to turn up for this one.
I think we have to put into context that this is probably the last 5.0 release, that were major 5.0 release, because next year they are okay. There's been some ambiguity on this because they keep going back whether 1D&D is 5.5 or just there's another thing, but the promise that has been made, as far as I'm aware, is that next year is the 50th anniversary of D&D, and the major thing is going to be the re-release of the core books as 1D&D or 5.5 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that means that anything that they're releasing on this at this point is something that is going to have some compatibility with the new rules, and it's probably going to have some things, some preview of the rules, but it's not going to get what we would call 90s level setting support. There might be some web enhancements, as I think that's what they're called, but I do not think there's going to be box of the lower planes or box of the higher planes or anything on that line.
I'm looking here at the details in the product page, which is saying, discover 2 new backgrounds, the Gate Warden and the Planar Philosopher, typical career characters in D&D Beyond character builder. Channel 7 otherworldly feats, new intriguing magic spells, and more. Right. 2 new backgrounds is a page, right?
Yeah, it's not much.
7 feats is a page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spells or however many spells there are. That's thin gruel. I'm just saying.
In terms of what they do usually put out at this point, yeah. Now, look, I've got my issues with Spelljammer, but if you were a player and you wanted new build options, you ate pretty well out of that book. Anyone who's I'd love to find a GM who'd give me permission to play an Astral Elf Barbarian in a regular D&D game. They're completely nutty. Like, mechanically, they're mental. There's so many, and then you've got the Griff, the Hippo guys, and the Blob guys. You've so many different wild and woolly player character options there. If you can convince your GM to allow you to take magical space nonsense into a regular game. I would have thought Planescape book was going to have at least that level of let's go mental.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, like, a bunch of the old Planescape unique things have gotten baked in. Like, tieflings are absolutely background wallpaper at this point.
True.
Like, I think Aasimar...
How much wilder can they get? They should put Ardlings in this book.
I mean,
if anyone looked at the one D&D playtest, they were like animal-headed, good aligned tiefling sort of substitute, and they were wild and not very well liked.
And they disappeared, did they?
Yeah, they didn't. Same thing. Like they apparently they've tested rogue Modrons, Lichlings, which they were, and the commentary I'm seeing is like, okay, they're not appearing, they're not being listed as an option, so I guess they didn't pass the test. But unless they're in that and more, little ampersand at the back of the product bit. But yeah, like if the sigil and the outlands thing is like 60-ish pages, and we're accounting for a dozen in all of your character options and the likes, then that's potentially a decent gazetteer. But the big question is, how much is given over to sigil and how much is given over to everything else?
So I'm looking at I'm going by artwork, so that's never a great indicator. But that DM screen does not show sigil as such, and that big old map they've got is the Outlands.
It's double-sided. If you flip it up, the other side is sigil, yeah.
But that's half and half.
It is a descriptive map more than it's a sort of a useful map, I'd say. The way I put it is...
I can't find a picture. If I keep scrolling.
It's more of a descriptive map than a super useful map, in that it's here is the kind of vague thing of the city, and I have super zoomed in, increased in size the buildings that are important. It's a tourist map.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
It's a feature map for players. It's perfectly fine for what it's doing.
For those of you who are playing along at home, it's 2 horizontal strips that presumably are the two halves of the torus.
Yeah.
Because Sigil is famously a kind of a donut.
So for full authenticity, what you should do is you should cut that map in half, glue the strips together, and form it into a ring, and then give it to your players.
Yeah, you stick your head inside and kind of rotate it.
Exactly.
The Outland player, please stop doing that. Like, I can't see anything, and now I've got to go and buy another one of these. So yeah, it's very much what's closer, the Colosseum of Screaming Skulls or the Palace of Angels' Wings?
It's not going building by building. It's fine. It's a feature map for I need to go here, or this is an important place. Clearly, and they've got the Taurus at the bottom. If you see there,
So you can see what it looks like. Yeah. Think any space station from sort of Kubrick. Your centrifugal force is the only thing holding us inside. Right. Is Elysium a better reference? Anyway, it's not a space station. This isn't space. They had that last year. This is Crazy Sliders Portal Casablanca.
I'm going to be really interested to see this because there's, Planescape came out when it did, and there was like, okay, we got some references. I'm going to be really interested to see how Planescape lands in an era of things like Kill 6 Billion Demons.
Yeah.
There's going to be people who are like, this is what the planes are like.
Folks, if you don't know what that is, it's a great webcomic. You should definitely check out. The artwork is very Ditrolizzi-esque, kind of ish. But it's a fantastic story, and it's got wild twists and turns. But the visuals are amazing.
And those people will not be supported by WotC, whatever WotC you're doing with them.
Yeah.
That is the now. See, what I'm wondering is, Fifth Ed is a very particular kind of game style, which has been promoted by a lot of the kind of leading media on it. It has a style. It has a house style, right?
Mm-hmm.
How well is that house style going to play with Planescape? Does it play well with Planescape?
Honestly, I think for, if you're thinking of it like a critical role style where it's very personality driven and based around interaction and then having big set piece fights, I think Sigil will do okay for that because, it is one of those settings where you can just have, big faction leaders show up, or, there'll be guidelines for coming up with faction NPCs for different, philosophical groups, or that Yugoloth who hangs around bars saying cryptic things, who's Chemalaska?
Shemeska, the Marauder.
Yeah, who is apparently the most apparently chill person in the entire setting, which means he's weird.
I think she's a she, actually.
I think it's gone back and forth a few times, but
Has it? Huh.
I'm not sure.
Oh, the weeds that we are in.
Anyway, no, but coming back to Owen's point, I think there's whatever about the mechanics. There's a bit a shift where like that kind of anything goes of 5e, where Mick, or the point you raised of what about all of the different. What if my DM lets me play all the weird stuff, like pair of multicolored tieflings and the plasmoid and the Quaggoth all walk into a bar in Sigil? That makes that nobody bats an eyelid because things are there's even weirder stuff sitting down the back. So that kind of like mash everything together makes sense in Sigil. It'll be interesting to see. Like Sigil itself and back in Second Ed was very much going for like a sooty, gritty, Victorian, noirish kind of atmosphere.
Dickensian.
Yeah, I think that's going out the window. That's gone.
Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy. Lots of bright primary colors, lots of light.
Yeah, exactly.
We are neon saturated from here to the edges of eternity. It's why they're. I mean, as you pointed out, Warlord. This is probably the last main release for this inverted quotation marks, air quotes even, edition of D&D. And they put a stake through the heart of Deadland, or not Deadlands, but
Dark Sun?
Dark Sun with the Spelljammer campaign, where they're like, yeah, that's a place that we just don't go anymore. Because it is immune to this idea of everybody can be anybody they want to be. Dark Sun is the gritty, no-nonsense setting.
Dark Sun is my favorite D&D setting.
But that's why you're not getting any more of it.
Yeah, they couldn't mechanically handle Dark Sun. They couldn't thematically handle Dark Sun.
Thematically, they wouldn't go near it these days.
I am so glad they're nowhere near it, because they would do something terrible to it. Utterly awful to it.
Like, surrendering that ground is probably the best thing they could have done. Yeah, I think this is, again, to answer your question, Owen, yeah, this can't but be in the house style, and in many ways kind of suits where D&D wants to be, probably better than the Sword Coast, or even what else they supported recently. I mean, Spelljammer, I think, does have the advantage of you're going to see a lot of strange folks on the Astral Sea, but like this one, as far as my memory is concerned, like, you could meet absolutely anything in Planescape. It's one of its foundational corners. It's one of the things that makes it such a great setting. And obviously now that you can play almost anything, it's going to be doubly so. But I think they're keep it light, keep it fluffy, keep it fey. There's very little space in these books to really dive into anything.
Which is weird, because a big part of the unique second half flavor was getting deep into philosophy, and there's a very big worry that the factions will become, every so often in third ed they would still reference the factions, but they would seem very much more like parodies. It wasn't about the philosophy, it's about how these guys were all extremists. Come and laugh at these extremists with their deep thoughts about the nature of the multiverse. And I don't know, I doubt they're going to make a incredibly deep take. You're not going to have 30-minute conversations with people about the natures of reality. I doubt it anyway.
In Spelljammer, were the Neogi still slavers, or was that gone?
I think they were. Let me just punch it up.
Because I've seen some resistance to, like, evil people shouldn't be slavers, and just get it out because it's culture war tinderbox in RPG stuff, so just toss it out.
Hida, isn't it time that we really re-examined our attitudes towards slavery? All cultures are valid, right?
Not in this one, sadly.
People are going to drop off this call now.
No. It's not. That's no. But like, it's culture war tinderbox. No one wants to touch it because it's just asking for a fight. It deploys no divisions. It just annoys people. So like everyone's backing off it, and I understand why.
Like, even if you win, you lose.
Yeah, I was just wondering, were the Neogi still slavers, or was that gone? Because what I was thinking about was the Yugolots. Did the Yugolots speak about slaves, or were they just?
No, they were kind of battle thralls more than slaves, like war beasts. And yeah, no, what we've got here, the latest Neogi is subjugate and devour. As long as they eat you, that's okay. You were still free when you died.
That's good. That's good. Because I thought that despite Planescape doing a huge amount about the Blood War, which I think is a very cool concept, I thought the Yugolots really got a lot of play here, didn't they? Rather than as kind of the schemers and the kind of mercs of the piece. And I was wondering how, like, do they still go into that? Because I thought, like, in some ways, the bad guys in Planescape get a much tastier slice of the pie.
Oh yeah, no question.
That, like, the Blood War is this, oh my god, concept. The Yugoloth get a bunch, and I think that, like, I would struggle to tell you the names of the neutral good, lawful good, and chaotic good thing. I know in Pathfinder it's the Heavens, Elysia, and no, it's in Pathfinder it's what it is. I can't remember what it is in D&D.
Yeah, the thing is, like, in D&D, like, between each of those Pathfinder planes, there's another plane. Like, the Planescape subdivides. You've not just got neutral good, you've got neutral good tending lawful, then lawful good tending more towards law, and so on. So what you've got, like, from Mount Celestia, then Bitopia, Elysium, the Beastlands, and Arborea as the kind of arc across the top. Arborea, Greek gods, cool. Bitopia and Elysium, they're really hard to write adventures for. I've been trying for like the past 18 months to go, like, what am I going to do up here? And Mount Celestia, again, it's just like, they're not, everything's in relatively good order. They're nice places. Where's the adventure? Which is why, though, like, why the lower planes and the Blood War got so much play, because they are disaster zones and there's tons of adventure down there.
Isn't that, like, I think that'd be an interesting thing to do with them, to go into, okay, we're going to do a bunch of adventures set in the heavens. I don't think they have either the resources they want to put into that, or the ambition maybe, or...
I'm going to say, it'll be left to Adventures League and D&D Beyond again.
Yeah.
Which, in a sense, is what they're for. It's they anchor the property with a release like this.
Yeah.
They don't have to put an awful lot of detail in anywhere, and with the sort of release schedule they have, they can't. And then they go. I mean, it's look. There's a whole discussion we could have another time about what purpose this kind of product serves, but it at least provides. It's shepherding enthusiastic customers to you who didn't get all they wanted. And it's up to you to provide more as a sort of third party or an independent, or possibly a good.
Without a strong sort of central aesthetic guide, though, we're going to get more of the same house style. So it'll be without someone to kind of crank open the window and get people thinking on the kind of awesome cosmic scale of the planes. It's going to be quite small scale.
Yeah,
that's like. I've looked at the stuff that's been coming out of the adventures, all the stuff people have been writing about Spelljammer, and it's like, hey, I've got a favorite sci-fi show. Let's do a D&D adventure about it. And it's like, okay, that's the guy who likes Battlestar Galactica. That's the guy who likes Star Trek. That's the guy like whatever. And it's there's nothing that's the kind of, well, what if D&D but in space? Weird, like fantasy in space that I might have expected. Even that you saw back in the second ed stuff. Maybe I haven't been delving deep enough, but I've been digging around a bit and I haven't found it.
Unfortunately, we live in a period of regurgitation, creatively. Anyways, that's pretty of a problem at the moment. But
which is my biggest issue with what fifth ed do and don't do, because they're going to cover. This is going to be like they're going to do a Modron adventure, right? Because the Modrons are, people like the Modrons, right? Very, very pleasing to the fans.
They've shown up in some of the charity adventures that they do.
Yeah, and they're on the cover of the adventure. So if the Modrons aren't there, we're being dragon heisted again. They're robbing they're robbing your house while you're out buying the adventure. I don't know.
Oh, is that what those are? Yeah, I thought that was a carrot.
Well, that was Ocean's 12's plotline. But
yeah,
the job of the company is to teach you how to play the game, and specifically how to play the setting. So your pre-published adventure is an opportunity to put in the unique selling points of the game and go, this is why this is cool. And give people something to point at and go, oh, look, this is cool. You'll do fine doing member Modrons, member Lady of Pain. You'll do a fine adventure doing that. Something a little more challenging, I'd like them to do, because they have the resources nobody else does. They have the infinite resources compared to the rest of the industry. So it'd be nice if they said, okay, what could we do that will be really cool? Instead of what can we farm out to a couple of freelancers for, 5 cents a word.
Do we've already seen, like, they've had 2 bites at the planes already. One in Radiant Citadel, which was standard adventure, different settings. So they were like, interesting, but didn't, and didn't massively crank open like this sort of big scale stuff. Descent into Avernus was kind of their, like, ought to have been what he is talking about here, of like big chunky stakes. Like there's an entire city in play. Everyone's going to die if you don't sort this out. You got to like drive a death machine around on the first layer of the 9 hells to sort this all out. That kind of thing, or more like that, would potentially be the sort of scale we're talking about here. But we haven't seen anything like that. And I don't know, like Descent into Avernus came out, and then we saw a whole bunch of spin-off, like here's more infernal machines, here's stuff to fluff out the adventure, here's cantilevered things around the central spine of the adventure. And we never got anything for any of the neighboring planes. Nobody tried to do an equivalent for Gehenna or any of the other planes. To say is like, okay, let's do big scale adventure for. Are
you talking about the DMs Guild response?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing is, with the DMs Guild, they're very particular about which parts of the setting become DMs Guildable. Like, it was a big thing, like when they made Secrets of Saltmarsh, which was basically a reprint of
of Greyhawk adventures, you were allowed to make all kinds of salt marsh adventures and go all over the different parts of the salt marsh region, but you weren't actually allowed to like go up to the other parts of Greyhawk. And this was a particular thing. And I suspect there was similar with Descent into Avernus. I think they probably said, yeah, you can make anything you want in Avernus, but they may not even have unlocked any of the other 9 hells as usable content.
Maybe I'm going to have my socks blown off in as soon as like the rest of the planes are cracked open and people are going to go, there'll be a flood of creativity. I will be pleasantly surprised.
Assuming the DM's Guild survives the 1 D&D or 5.5 or whatever transition, which is still not 100% confirmed.
That'll be an accounting decision. Okay, how do we wrap this up?
How much is this costing?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
How much is it costing? How many bones are we looking
How
at
many
here?
shekels?
It's going to be like 70 quid.
And it's 50 to get the content, the digital content only, right?
Fair enough. And I have to put like the lack of player content is just striking on this one. So what I think Xaosseed's probably in the right ballpark. 70 for the 70, 80? We're talking euros here.
I think this could be 100, but that's just me because I'm a cynic.
Oh, right. So I'm seeing right now, I punched through and I'm seeing 95 discounted down to 79.
That's if you pre-order, yeah?
Yeah, must be.
Dollar-euro translation's almost 1 for 1 when it comes to this stuff. So.
What do you get? How big are these books? Because there's no page count.
A 64 page each, judging by the look.
And 96, Sigil in the Outlands, 96 pages, Turn of the Adventure, 96 pages, the Bestiary, 64 pages.
Okay, that's a step up.
Yeah.
So that's nearly core book sized for a standard RPG.
Yeah, except they're likely to go. I'd say they'll go with the Spelljammer model of big art, and big art is less words.
It is, yeah. So we're looking at a big Gateville poster map, which is that the Cosmos now, the different planes?
Nah, not really. It's just like, I reckon that's like access points to the different planes from the Outlands tagged, if at all.
I wonder if they even still going to have the rule that you can't cast spells the closer you are to the fire.
Nah, that is removing player agency, and you're a bad person for even thinking that we would do such a thing.
So there's a price bump, there's a slight page count bump. You get some nice stuff. I mean, the map is very nice.
You're getting a GM screen.
I think they're always hit and miss. I think they're almost always, who the hell put this together? Like, this is not relevant.
You need a smart person to do it, and it is often not done with the care that you'd value with it. I'm looking at this and I'm going, if you're a player buying this, you're a mug.
Oh, there's nothing for players here.
There's not enough content in here to justify a player buying. This is a DM product, which is fine because a lot of products are DM products. So you're going to get, if this is your bag, yeah, sure. If you're a system of choice and everything else set of print or like at 2 editions old at this stage, more 3 editions old at this stage. 2nd edition was the last official hurrah. Other than that, you look at the dungeon content. Well, if this is your bag, this is what you like. Yeah.
One of the big question marks is, how good is the adventure? Now, Bill, you said you've modified the one we're running, but I get the impression that we're still somewhere inside the playground. No? Yeah. You can't say any more. But okay, regardless of what you're running for us, having read it, presumably in the forlorn hope that we'd stick to it, what did you think of the Spelljammer campaign that they packed with the last release?
It was made for streaming.
Yikes. Ah, okay.
It was made to be like punchy, short haul, end on a cliffhanger, which they said in the interviews. And then like the next one starts off with kind of like a bang, or the next one like in some cases like wriggles off that cliffhanger in a very like with one bound our hero was free, like what the hell. And in other times it's like, okay, that's we are starting on initiative, roll it. There's some good set pieces in it. There's some very railroady timing things that I'm like, look, I've looked at and gone like, how the hell do you pull this one off? But basically, I've repurposed a bunch of the set pieces. I just had to completely re-matrix them. Like they're how you get to them, I've had to redo entirely.
I cannot wait for your Alexandrian piece on it. Okay, so I think I think we're all a bit ambivalent on this one.
I'm gonna buy it anyway. I mean, fine.
Oh yeah, like if you're a fan, if you're a genuine fan, you're gonna buy it, even if there's a little bit of you maybe you toss the credit card down a little bit extra hard. But you're gonna because you're a fan, I'm gonna get this, see what it's like. Even if I just end up complaining about it, you'll probably still use some of it. Like if you're doing a new player and you can pop out the map of Sigil, that's at least somewhat handy. The rest of the stuff, I mean, you're gonna get updated monsters. You're gonna get some value out of it, but it's a GM purchase. It's one for definitely for a fan of Planescape.
And they got me as soon as they brought back Tony Ditalis. As soon as they made that commitment to we're going to keep it at least aesthetically coherent to the old stuff by bringing back Tony. I was like, okay.
They've done the variant covers, haven't they?
Yeah, now
and some interior artwork.
That's what I'm going to ask you. Are you buying the regular edition or are you buying the variant covers?
I'm buying the variant covers.
And are the variant covers at a premium?
I didn't check.
Or is it the same price, just more limited distribution? Or is it...
I think you can only get it through the stores. It might be like tenner in the difference of 20. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I saw a headline the other day which resonated with me, which was basically gamer who swore never to spend $70 on a game didn't say anything about $130 collector's edition that comes with a special little toy. And that I was like, yeah, I understand that one.
For my money, he's a defining artist for the setting, and it's great to see him, still eating well. I hope, he's probably commanded a great price for this.
I hope so. I hope his pension is secure at this point.
Well, he did all those Spellfire cards, wasn't it?
There was Spellfire. There was a Blood War card game.
That's right.
Came out in '95. So if he did those, Jesus, maybe he traded for some Magic cards at the right time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about current Magic some other time. I've got some questions. Okay, Shane, I'm going to give you the very last word here because you're sort of the ingenue for this one. Would you be persuaded to play this if someone said, "Hey, we're going to do new Planescape"?
Honestly, the fact that there's an emphasis on the Outlands as opposed to just Sigil is actually sort of piquing my interest, because one of the things that I worry about Planescape is essentially Sigil is a kind of too good of a subsetting that it kind of undermines the premise of the planes hopping element, because there's always this temptation to just stay in Sigil, seeing all the weird stuff there forever, and you never actually go planes hopping or portal diving. But if there's an emphasis on the Outlands, which is this weird neutral territory with all these sort of enclaves of the Outer Planes in it, I think that's a positive sign, I think. I would be very interested if some enterprise GM was to come to me and say, I would like to run some of this, even if you are modifying it or stealing half of it from second-hand adventures, I would be on board for that. As for purchasing myself, well, again, it's mostly down to the timing of we're in the awkward between editions phase where we're not entirely sure whether the game we're going to get for the 50th anniversary is going to be like a complete reboot or just merely a reprinting with new rules. So I'm a little gun shy about investing in the things. And if I was suddenly set my heart on running a Planescape game of my own, I'd probably be looking to invest in the second ed PDFs, which are still available on the DMs Guild, and use those as the basis for work, rather than shelling out this €80 price tag for what's meant to be more of a primer for a newer audience, whereas I might look for a more complete set of fluff.
I mean, if you wanted the hard copies, the print on demands of the old Planescape stuff are pretty good. I backfilled to something I was missing with, and it's like...
Which is a problem that all these 5th Ed revival products have, is that they're basically selling the original stuff in pretty much perfect nick if you're willing to drop the money on it. So all their new reinterpretation of it has to have its own spin. And I'm not saying it destroys the purchasing arithmetic, but it does affect it.
I mean, the thing they could have sold here, and maybe it's in there, is like, here is plot generators, encounter tables, random planar settlement stuff. Like, the planes are infinite. How do you generate content for infinity? And we never got that. Like, those kind of like that level of like, how do you build a campaign out there? That actually wasn't even in the second ed stuff. So there's still spaces for them to give us toolkits to really leverage the setting. Maybe they'll do it. Maybe they won't. Let's see.
Okay. Okay. That's it, folks. Separate. Back to corners. Now listen, Xaosseed, I lied. You get the very final word, but the only thing you're allowed to do is plug your blog. Go.
You can read my thoughts on many more things on seedofworlds.blogspot.com.
We'll squeeze a link into the description below, or you can come and find a link on our Discord, which is where we hang out. We're recording this, where you could be in an episode, which we will also record. But for now, this party's over.
Thanks for listening to The Adventuring Party. You can find show notes and links to things we've mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there, or talk to our Twitter account at AdventuringPTY, or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. We can also be contacted directly by email at party@theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be in touch with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike version 3 license.
I'm just saying, Hida, you were very gracious in discussing a 5e product.
Or maybe we've all come up to his level.
No, like it's no one was really no one was dick riding too hard in it. So I was like, okay, that's grand. Like I felt the need to. I don't feel the need to make up stuff to shit in it. My stuff, my issue with it is most people's issue with, or some people's critical issue with it at this stage. Not enough effort goes into it for what they're asking from you. And my question about the price is pointed. It's like, how much is this product they're asking you to pay for? And I put that to them because they're the guys who have the cheapest costs. They make the most money. They have the lowest costs. And I think it's incumbent upon them to provide the best product then, and they don't. They provide the laziest product. And that's part of my issue with them. It's like everyone else their print runs cost them probably with 10 times what WotC's cost them, because WotC printed such scale, and everyone else, like not per unit, but everyone else is scraping along, and these guys can go, oh yeah, we'll charge this much for a thing.
Yeah, they're shifting each of those units at a premium. Shane, I think you're absolutely bang on about the timing. I think it might actually be the reason why this has so few character options, because they don't know what they'll carry forward, and people won't give a rat's ass about if the grapple rules change or if something on the GM side changes radically between 5 and whatever the hell they're going to end up calling the next one. But if you take away someone's busted build at this stage, having released it like less than a year previous, they'll lose the plot.
Yeah, there's no racial options. There's no subclasses. It's just some feats, some spells, all the some background, some stuff they can swap in and out, and no one's going to miss.
That's going to hurt the sales, though, right? Like they do at some level rely on players buying power creep or whatever.
Yeah, to an extent. I'm not sure how much. I suspect it is a factor, but not a fundamental factor. But I suspect most of the let's call them rules commentator people who are scrolling things. I think those people are probably fixated on the D&D Beyond playtest material at this point. So
they've got plenty of red meat.
Yeah.
This one could fly under the radar. Right. This is meant to be half an hour. I'm going to stop the recording here.